here we are once again. You will not believe the amount of things that this man does. You might have recognized him and seen him and heard him on either him singing for a live band called Slaves on Dope. You might have seen him interviewing superstars at Comic-Con festivals in Ottawa and in Montreal. You might have heard him on Showm FM. My God. Try to keep up with this man.
He has shared stages with the likes of Ozzy Osbourne, Motörhead, Korn, Pantera, Our Lady Peace. I could go on all day. And those are just to name a few.
You won't want to miss this. Welcome to Basement TV.
Hey,
Jason.
what's up, man? Hi.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. This is fun. This is so nice.
Thank you, my
But
friend.
you always do everything nice.
Stop. This is not about me. This is about you. But thank you so much for doing our humble little podcast that we call Basement TV. You are not a foreigner to doing this.
No.
Usually you're the one asking the questions.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to return the favor and go down memory lane and ask you a few questions. And we're gonna go way back.
I love it.
Jason, when I first met you, I was working at Steve's music store.
Yep.
You would come in with your band, Slaves on Dope. You would come into the store with Kevin Jardine
Yep.
and the rest of the guys. You were doing band competitions. And I remember I literally got in a fight with a judge that didn't want to push you through to win that competition. And I was super adamant about these guys are doing what's hip and what's happening now. You guys aren't seeing what's going on. And they randomly picked, that's what it felt like. They just randomly picked some super dancey type 80s band. And you guys came out on stage just like you doing your thing.
Yeah.
And I literally, to this day, I think that person still, he will go unnamed, but still probably doesn't like me because of like how much of a stink I put up. Now, fast forward, you did another competition and that one you won. And you went out, and I remember I actually had to escort you guys outside to your cars because there were people that were pissed off that their mothers in the audience or their brothers and sisters and friends of other bands were pissed off because you guys won.
Yeah.
And I literally remember escorting you and Kevin out to the parking lot. It's like, guys, get out of here. Just go,
I
go,
remember that.
go. So now we fast forward just a little bit because you guys really, really had this trajectory where you were like on a roll.
Yeah.
And you were relentless with like plugging the band, playing, and trying to push, no pun intended, really, really cool thing here. And you would push this to the edge.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing. So all of a sudden, you're in LA. You guys bust down to LA, did showcases, then eventually end up getting signed to Ozzy's new label. Now, not just getting signed to Ozzy's new label, the first band on Ozzy and Sharon's new label, Divine Recordings.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, I still remember all those contests.
Do
by
you?
The way. I remember we just wanted to try to any opportunity we could to play anywhere. We'd play anywhere. We'd play a bar mitzvah. We'd play a fucking store opening.
Winning aside.
Can I swear? It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. we would play anywhere. And contests were one of these things that I don't know what it was about the 90s, but there was always a battle of the bands or this band, and we'd always lose. And then we eventually won one. Yeah. But I remember where you're talking about. I remember which band we beat, and I still see one of the members once in a while. They're like, "I'm really sorry."
I know exactly who it was.
That's what happens when you lose against a certain band and you're in St. Leonard.
Yeah.
But,
Oh my gosh.
it's like, man, it was the block was hot. But no, moving to LA was the best thing we ever did because it was really we were at a breaking point. It was like, and it's funny because driving over here, I was listening. I don't know why I was listening to it, but I was listening to Deftones Around the Fur, which came out in like '97. And it was so influential on us and changing our headspace and how we approach music. And it was that show, that Deftones show at Cabaret on that tour, I think it was 96 or 97, that all of us looked at each other and said, it's not happening here. It's happening west.
Yeah.
And moving there was the best thing we ever did, because we all looked at each other and said, if we don't do this, we're not going to be able to continue. We crisscrossed Canada a dozen times. It like you said, like at the beginning, no one wanted to listen to what we were doing, and they didn't even care if it was hip.
Nobody got it.
No one got it. And, you know, the 90s for Canadian music was a great time when you look back. And all the bands we ended up touring with, and I'm still friends with now, that I ended up playing when I worked in radio, were great, but we didn't fit in with any of them. So we'd open up for Moist, we'd open up for Our Lady Peace, we'd open up for Tea Party, but we didn't fit. But they were all like, well, these guys are pretty good, so we'll have them open. But that was the 90s. Like, nothing had to fit. It all just went. But by the time we got to LA in 99, 2000, we were ready. And it was a trip. It was a crazy ride. Moving there was like being at a card table and just all your chips just going all in. That's what we did. At that point, we're like, it's all in. It's now or never.
There was no plan B.
There was no plan B.
Did Ozzy happen after the move? Prior to the move? After.
Yeah. It was because as a result of moving there. That's why we got that deal. We went there. At the time, we had a manager who kind of, I don't want to say he was ready to move on to somebody else, and he just said, "Look, guys, if you want to make it happen, this is where you got to go. Here's a couple of names. Good luck."
Right.
And we had a booking agent's name, we had a manager's name, and we had 2 shows booked in the States. We had one booked in Seattle, one booked in Portland to get us to LA. So we literally drove from Montreal to Seattle to open up for Motörhead.
Big drive. Big
drive.
show.
Showed up. We were
show.
We were first of 4. It was Motörhead, Dropkick Murphys,
Oh, wow.
Hatebreed, and us. We showed up to the venue. Got there the day before, 2 days before. We rehearsed at a rehearsal space. Showed up to the venue, and the club owner was like, "No one said you were on the bill." We're like, "But we just drove from Montreal." They're like, "Well, no, you're not on." And we just all looked at each other and said, "What the hell? Like,
How does that even happen?
How's that happen?" Word got to Lemmy. Lemmy came off the bus, went into the promoter's office and said, "These boys drove all the way from Canada. If they don't get 20 minutes, I'm not playing," and went back on his bus.
Get
Dang.
out.
And that was our first experience with Lemmy, and that was our first experience playing in the States, really. We had played once before in Vermont, but that was our real first U.S. show. And Lemmy went to bat for us. And it was like, at that moment, we knew the tides were turning for us. We knew that we were in the right place.
Right.
And then when we showed up in California, I mean, in LA, once we got to LA, it was, I mean, within 3 months, we were offered like 6 deals. It was crazy.
Sure.
I'm really curious because, I mean, musicians here, like up and coming musicians, like a lot of the time we look, especially towards like LA and stuff, we imagine the great lights.
Yeah.
You actually got there.
Yeah.
So once you got to LA, what was the path that you took? Like, how did you get all of these offers?
Well, we showed up. We had gotten a couple of people that we had seen in Montreal. It was actually Wayne Static from Static X that we saw at a Static X show. Said, if you want to go, if you're moving to LA, here's a number for someone at the Coconut Teaser. She'll give you a gig. So we just booked gigs. We showed up. We played Metal Mondays at the Troubadour. We played at the Roxy. We played at the Whiskey. We played all the shows we could, and just hustled our way in. And I remember 1999, we played the Ozfest camping parking lot show in 1999. And then the next year we were on Ozfest as Ozzy's band and Sharon's band. It was crazy. It was like, what?
From playing the parking lot to the main stage.
To being in the inner sanctum, if you will. It was crazy. And I remember we were the only band on the actual tour, because it was a tour of like 50 bands. We were the only band on the tour that were in an RV. Right. Because we knew if we took an RV instead of a bus, our tour support would last longer. And everybody would be like, why are you in an RV? Like, everyone's on a bus. Like, and we're like, no, we're going to be, humble Canadians.
It was smart too, because any money that you're spending back then from the label, you owe.
Yeah,
So,
and the thing is, back then was when our recording budget for Interest from the Main Line was $250,000.
Oh yeah, no, there was money falling from the sky back
then. We had sushi
then.
every day. We recorded at A&M Henson Studios. It was like baller.
But it was also money that you had to pay back.
Yeah, which we.
So
I don't think we had.
No. Of course.
You weren't thinking of that.
No.
Okay.
No, which is fine. We can look past all of those things. Now, EMI drops Divine Recordings for distribution. Now Slaves on Dope is left without a home.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, the label dropped us. It was literally the whole infrastructure in the house fell apart.
Yeah, it just fell apart.
So now you contemplate. It costs a lot of money to live in LA.
Well, yeah,
You know?
we had moved there, and almost a year to the day we went on Ozfest. Like
Right.
we literally packed our apartment up, got rid of everything that was in there, the bunk beds we had bought, everything, and just got on an RV and just went. And we
Right.
toured for 10 months.
Right.
Then we came back home. And then we were home for a bit, and we would go back and forth. And then when we went back to LA to take another stab at it, try to get another record deal, all that stuff, we were kind of couch surfing. You know, we lived with our manager at one point in Thousand Oaks, and then I stayed with friends in Santa Monica, and that's when we really didn't have a home base. We were kind of like disoriented a bit. But yeah, Sharon and Ozzy, their deal ran out, and then they started doing the Osbournes. And that was it. I mean, that they
reality
became,
TV hit.
They became massive stars of their own right. So, yeah, we ended up. It was actually Jason Bieler from Bieler Brothers, who was the guitar player from Saigon Kick, who had a new, had a new label, and they signed us. And the day our record came out, they lost their distribution. It was just crazy.
Yeah.
Just one thing after
It
another.
was just one thing after another, and it was just the typical, music story.
Well, it actually just continued to decline with the whole music industry and everything changing.
Oh, 99, I mean,
so fast,
yeah.
you know? It's like from 99, 2000, and then
Napster.
it was just like a whole flex of like things happening. Napster, and just like, oof, okay, where is the industry going? What is happening? At the time, it wasn't really hitting. Everybody's thinking like, oh, this is just like a little glitch in the matrix, But what I love is your ability to bounce back from a lot of these things that had gone on. And so Slaves on Dope, at one point, you leaving the band, Slaves on Dope, it was almost like kind of like David Lee Roth leaving Van Halen. It's like you could maybe find another singer, but you were such a focal point, of that band, and I imagine even Kevin just going, I don't want another singer, like if we're not going to do this, like let's not do this.
It's funny because when the way Slaves on Dope kind of ended, my girlfriend at the time was pregnant, and I got back after touring forever, got back home, and she was 3 months pregnant, and I said I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
The way I handled it wasn't the most mature way of handling it. I kind of just pieced out and did, like kind of moonwalked into the bushes like Homer Simpson. I didn't really do it the right way. And because of that, our relationship suffered. And from what Kevin told me after when we got back together and, tried to take another stab at the band, he told me that they had approached, because we had a whole European tour booked. We had a new European label that Bieler had sourced the record out to, and they were really into us. We had gone over to France. We'd done really well. They had a whole European tour book for us. And that's when I kind of bowed out. And they had tried to get another guy to sing, and they had said like, we'll continue. And supposedly they said, well, we don't want to have, if it's not the whole band, we don't want it. And that's when the other two guys kind of splintered off, did their own thing. Kevin started another band. And
Sure.
I think in hindsight, I would have loved to have handled it better and been able to sit down, in a jam room like this and go, guys, I just can't do this anymore.
Right.
But as you know, when you're in a kind of democratic music state, it's very difficult to do that. And like men they can't really share together well and be transparent and open. And I mean,
Not back then.
Yeah. And even now, I mean, I've been in recovery, we'll probably talk about it, but I've been in recovery for a long time. Sure. And one thing that being in recovery taught me was to be vulnerable and to be open and to be honest and to talk. And when you're able to do that, it's a lot easier. But still, when you get anyone in a band dynamic, for some reason, it's just very, very hard to be able to have those kind of conversations. So in hindsight, I would have loved to have had a better conversation about it. But I'm really glad that I did take a step away from music and see that there was a much bigger world. And it's funny because I find myself in a very similar situation now for the last couple of months of stepping back going, okay, there's another path that's coming my way and who knows what it's going to be.
Sure.
and that's just the way life is. You got to be open to those things.
How long did you take a step back? Because you mentioned getting back together and trying to.
As time goes, I get less and less clear on how long it was. But I think Kevin and I didn't talk for about 3 years, three or 4 years, maybe more.
Having to do with the way that things kind of ended.
He was upset. He was mad. And I understand. Like it was very cowardly the way I did it when I think about it. But I think sometimes you have to just blow the whole place up,
Sure.
and it just was the only way I could really get away.
Sure.
And it's funny because I had no regrets. Like once the door was closed on that, I was fine. And I did come back to music, and we did ended up, getting back together, writing a couple of records and touring. And Slaves on Dope still exists to a degree or another now. I mean, we're still friends.
There's still collaborations, which we'll get into.
There's still things that we do.
Yeah.
I think the idea of us going and doing it again like we did it, I don't know where that is, but, he's got a 3-year-old now. Isabella's almost 3. So he's at a much different place. Like my kids are 19 and 16. So we're like, he's got a ride in front of him. But Kev's, one of my oldest friends and my dearest friends. And we've always, we've done so much together. But it's funny how, sometimes you need to take a step away to realize there's other things. And I'm really proud of what we did after. Like we put out a couple of records. We did a lot of really cool stuff after. Sure. But but sometimes you look at yourself and like, I don't know, man, I'm 52. I don't know if I want to like put on camo shorts and scream pushing me anymore. Like, just don't know if that's me, and that's okay. It's okay.
It's you when you get back on stage. I see it's you.
Yeah. But sometimes you just, like
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? It's like,
of course.
I don't know if I want to get in a van and go tour and like.
Dude, I haven't played live since 2008 was my last gig. And the only reason that I took on that gig was because I was getting paid for the rehearsal. They rehearsed at my studios and I was getting paid for the gig, and it was performing for Akon. It was the only way to get me to say, yes, I'll play
when it's perfect scenarios. And that's why people ask me, like, where Slaves on Dope at? And I say the same thing. There's always a version of Slaves on Dope that's ready to go.
Absolutely.
If the conditions are what we deem, and who knows? I mean, never close the door on anything.
No, of course not.
That's for sure.
I call you the pop culture king here in Montreal. I mean, if there's anybody that knows anything about movies, television, what's going on in music, what are the trends, who do they call? You are a spokesperson for Comic-Con. You are a correspondent for CTV. There's a reason for all of this, and I'd like to know how it first started for you to be able to go from screaming in a mic to gently asking questions in a soft tone. Yeah. Your soft tone, lovely voice.
Christine Long from CTV.
Really?
Yeah. She's the reason why. And she always, whenever I say this, she's always like, oh, stop. But it's true.
Right.
It was Christine Long.
She's a sweetheart.
That gave me the push.
Yeah.
At the time, I was living in Dorval, and we both had young kids. And we were pushing our kids on the swings. And she looked at me, she goes, last week I saw you at Aretha Franklin, and then I saw you at Public Enemy. She goes, you're always at shows. And one of the great things about stepping away from music and just being a civilian, and I got to go to so many shows. I got to buy tickets. I got to be a fan. It was the best. And I just said to her, I go, like, I just love experiencing things. And I've always been a movie fan. I've always been a TV fan. I've always been, I started out wanting to be an actor. That's what I wanted to do. I went to Dawson Theater Program. And, it's one of my big regrets was not finishing that. But at the time I was way too messed up.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But Christine Long was the one that said, have you ever thought of being a pop culture columnist? I was like, oh, no, what's that? She goes, well, you go on and you talk about stuff you like and you give your opinion. So I was like, that sounds like fun. So Todd Vanderhayden Todd Vanderhayden at the time, who was the anchor at CTV, a co-anchor with Mitsumi, they were looking for columnists. And I was working for my dad in trucking, dispatching at a transport yard, and I couldn't get away. So she sent a CTV truck to do a screen test for me at work, and we did it.
Oh, wow.
Sent in the screen test to Todd. Todd liked me, and I remember my first segment I did was on Watchmen.
Oh, wow.
And I started doing stuff with them semi-regularly, and then about a year later, I got the job at Showm. So it was just like that was the trajectory that, got me to talking, because I loved whenever I did radio with the band on the other side of it, being the person being interviewed. I loved all of I loved it. I loved walking into the studio. I loved all that. And when I got the opportunity to have a platform, I seized it. And I said, can you do this interview? Yes. Can you do? Yes. I always said yes. And I think that's what led me to being able to kind of put my own stamp on it.
They didn't know you'd do it for free. Because,
yeah, and that's it. And and then, like everything, I had to put my 10,000 hours in and log the miles. Sure. And then, but I mean, some of my first interviews were Peter Gabriel. I remember when they sent me to do that. He was here promoting this his New Blood 3D movie in Montreal. And I was shitting bricks.
Yeah.
Peter Gabriel.
Yeah.
I was so fucking nervous. And I watched that interview now, I cringe, but
really,
I still can't believe I did that, So there's opportunities when they're put in front of you, you just have to say yes.
Sure.
So I think a lot of it is just saying yes.
Was there a transitional period or any sort of difficulty, from you were the front person of a band, you were the main voice, and now who you were not really necessarily creating, but kind of taking a backseat and giving others a voice. Yeah. Was there any sort of transitional period?
It's funny because I got a gold record from Half Moon Run on the first album. They presented me a gold record with my name on it. And that was such a huge point for me in just seeing what kind of a difference I could make being of service and helping rather than being the guy in the spotlight. And I really loved that position, being the guy that says, you know what? I'm going to help you as much as I can, and I'm going to use my platform to help you. And if I can, great. And that's what I ended up trying to do at Showman as much as I could. And that, again, went hand in hand with recovery and being of service and not putting yourself kind of on the back burner and thinking of others. So it was, I actually like that transition for me was a very comfortable one, and I liked it. I liked it. I still kind of prefer being on the other side, like what you guys, I'd much rather be doing what you're doing right now than being me.
Really?
Much rather be asking, because but I love conversations. I love people.
Right.
Like, I'm that guy that talks to everybody. I'm the one that talks, says hi to the person at the grocery store. And like my dad was like that. And my kids see me sometimes and they're like, you're becoming like Grandpa was. Like, you're that guy who just asks everybody, like, where are you from? What do you do? And
thank you.
I
would say thank you.
Yeah, but my dad used to be like that. My dad was that guy who always wanted to know, where are you from? You look familiar. Where do you know this person? Your last name? Oh yeah, Chambers. Yeah.
Right.
Do you know Bill Chambers? Like, it was
right.
But that's just, I think someone's just general. Like, he just loved people, and that's how I am. I like people, so I'll talk to anybody.
Did you ever kind of, when you're talking to all these musicians and like creators of different kinds, did you ever kind of miss that within yourself? Or you said that this was kind of comfortable. Did you find just like pure fulfillment in just being on the other end? Yeah.
It's my favorite thing to do now. Like, I love sitting down and it's crazy because every once in a while, you'll do like 40 interviews and then you'll have that one interview and you're like, hey, I think I just got my next, like, if you're looking at like martial arts, like, I think I just got my blue belt.
Right.
Like, something clicks. And just the other day I was on a tour bus interviewing somebody and I was like, and I talked to my partner Ryan and I was like, I think I just went from here to here. And he's like, you did. And I felt it. And then every interview I've had since, I've just felt more comfortable. And it's such a great feeling when you can just, and that's another thing with getting older. You just get more comfortable. And
Sure.
And then what happens is you see the countdown clock behind, in front of you, and you're like, fuck, I'm just getting good at this. And now you're telling me that now it's just going to go like that now.
Right.
But that's just life. But
Yeah.
I like being in the other side where you're talking and you can have real conversations and, knowing something about someone, but not knowing too much and discovering and being in the conversation, like being in the moment, all that stuff when you talk to people is so important. And you only learn it the more you do it. Like, I used to go in prepared with notes. I don't do any of that anymore. I know a little bit about the person and then I just let the conversation flow. Because if you're too caught up in what the next question is going to be, you're not listening to what that person's saying.
Right.
And if that person throws you for a loop, you'll just be like deer in the headlight. But the thing is, when you're having when you are in a format where you don't have 20 minutes, or like you have like an hour and a half or whatever, it's great to be able to just branch off.
Right.
But where you really learn how to get good at it is junkets. Like, I started doing movie junkets where I would have 3 minutes or 2 minutes with somebody.
Right.
And you're in a room like this and there's somebody sitting right over there
Yep.
that's looking at you going 2, 1, wrap up.
Yeah.
And that's when you're really like, you've got to sit in a chair with someone who's been getting a line of people all day, and you've got to make a connection with them in 2
And
minutes, 3 minutes.
been asked the same questions
shit.
all day long.
All day long.
So you're thinking, and which has to be the most challenging part of your job is, what can I say or what can I ask that doesn't seem like it's a question?
Yeah.
And how can I get them to open up to me in 3 minutes?
It's hard. It's hard. But when it happens, that's the shit.
magic.
Those are
right
the
there.
best
That's
interviews.
the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you can get that, and you don't need a lot of time with someone, but it's nice when you have time. And sometimes I'll get 10 minutes with somebody and I'll be like, oh, I wish I had half an hour.
Right.
And there's other times where I have 45 minutes with someone and I'll
Sure.
be like, okay. Like not the other day, but maybe a couple months ago, I was doing an interview at Montreal Comiccons backstage with a guest. They both came off stage. I've been doing interviews all day. They came off stage. I asked them a question. They stonewalled me, both of them. I asked them one more. They stonewalled me. And I said, all right, thanks. And we wrapped it. And they looked at me like, and the whole crew looked at me and I'm like, we're done.
We're not getting anything
They don't
out
want
of
to
this.
talk. I don't want to be here. It's like, it's good. Like, bye. And they were like, wow, I can't believe you did that. I'm like, well, why make it last any longer? Like,
It's just painful for both
it's
parties.
painful. Like, just stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's certain things that you learn, and also like when people are late, like I try to always be on time, and I have a thing now, especially because I do a lot of stuff on Zoom. If someone's 5 or 10, I'll give them 5 or 10 minutes late. I don't care who you are. We're done.
Yeah.
Your time is of value.
Like, tell me.
Yeah.
Send me an email saying they're going to be late. Fine. But when you just don't show and they're like, oh, wait, they're on their way. I'm like, good. Not with me.
Yeah.
Because I just don't have time for it anymore.
I think setting precedent, of what your standards are.
Yeah.
And just a little bit of respect. And it's a really great way, without saying a word,
Yeah.
to say, my time is valuable.
Yeah. Because it is.
Yeah.
I mean, the older you get, that's one commodity you just can't get back. It's like, it's the thing that matters the most to me
Yeah.
now is time.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so
Yeah.
adamant about being on time, being respectful of other people's time. Like, I'm the guy that if you tell me to be there at 2, I'm going to be there at 1:59 or 2:01. But and I pride myself. I look at my watch going, like when I walked in here today, I was like 2:01. I'm here. Like I got here right. That's what's important.
You know what they say, right? If you're on time, if you arrive on time, you're late.
If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time,
No, if you're on
late.
time, you're late.
Well, I learned that, and that's another thing I learned in recovery is like they would tell you, I do meetings and they would say like show up early, leave late, But I try to be really conscious of people's time, and in that and yes, things happen. Of course, things happen, but sometimes you're like, all right, this is just happening too.
We
too
just
many
want to
times.
avoid,
Yeah.
avoid that altogether. Now, we fast forward a little bit, and so Showm FM was a staple in our lives, and it was very much a part of our being. Now you're asked to be a DJ on that show. What was the feeling, and how did you get that call to actually be a full-time employee?
Well, I was doing the pop culture segments with Todd with another guy named Patrick Charles. And Patrick was a DJ on Virgin. Someone had messaged me on Facebook saying that they were doing a demo because Virgin was looking for an overnight host. Kevin and I were recording, and I said, Kev, I should do a demo for Virgin for fun. So I messaged Patrick, and I said, Patrick, I heard they're looking for, hosts on Virgin overnight. What do you think? And he's like, well, do a demo. Send it to me when you get it. So did a demo, and I asked him, I think there was a guy named Bob Harris at this time that was running Virgin. And for some reason, I got in touch with him. I think Patrick had said, get in touch with him. And I said, what do I do? And he said, well, make a demo like you would have your own radio show. How would your radio show be? So I did a bunch of crazy accents. I did commercials. I did in and out of like traffic. I did this whole little demo with Kevin, and he put it all together for me. Thank God. And I sent it to Patrick, and I didn't hear anything. 2 weeks went by, and I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, guess nothing's happening. And then finally he said, hey man, I listened to your demo, and I gave it to the guys at Showm because they're looking for somebody. I was like, Showm, fuck. And my dealings with Showm, were from the Show Esprit contest. So that one of the contests that Albert was talking about was the
Right.
Show Esprit, where we won these through talent search. Every year they had a band that would win studio time and all this stuff. So I knew Shom and I knew Too Tall, and I hadn't listened to Shom in years. And all of a sudden I got a call from Ray Scott, and he was like, "We'd like you to come in and read." So I went in and I did a demo, and they offered me a part-time job Thursday into Friday, Friday into Saturday, Saturday into Sunday, overnights, midnight to 5 a.m. 3 days,
Ouch, the graveyard shift.
3 days a week. So I started this in like mid-December, and I was working for my dad at the time for a trucking company, and it was a brutal job. And then I started doing this, and by like January, they offered me a full-time gig 5 nights a week, and I had to make a decision. So for a year, I did both. I did overnights,
Right.
That's a lot.
So I would go to work at midnight till 5 a.m., go to sleep, wake up at 11 a.m., go to my dad's for noon to 6 or 7, after a year, I said I'm just gonna. I quit my dad's place and went and worked for Show.
Well, because once your foot is in the door, I
Yeah.
mean, you don't want that door to slam shut again. I mean, once you got it in there,
Yeah, and it was great, and I loved it, and it was a great opportunity to just do something completely different. But again, imposter syndrome. I didn't feel like I belonged. I wasn't a radio guy. Everybody in that building had paid their dues, had started on the street team, had gone to radio school, and here I was, this dude who just knew music.
And because you were working for your father.
Yeah.
How did that conversation go?
Didn't go well.
Okay.
At all. But it wasn't it was a bad scene. And it's my dad passed away maybe four and a bit years ago. His birthday was yesterday. And it was funny how, I'm not saying it spoiled our relationship, but I think there was a part of him that knew I never fit into that. Like my dad, when I worked for my dad, it would always be like I had a van and it was through my dad's company. And the deal was you can have a van for touring, but when you get home, you're doing deliveries all over the city with it. So that was the deal. So it was a pretty good deal. That's how we were able to actually start touring because of my dad. My dad got me a van and said, "Here, but when it's home, you're fucking delivering it." And I did. So, he was a big reason why we were able to take Slaves on Dope from Montreal onward and, across the country and all that. But I think it was a part of him that understood. And I think part of him too, being a boomer and being, in a situation with his dad where he couldn't really talk to his dad. It's like, there was my grandfather came over here from Russia during, horrible times. It was not the same thing. Like there's no talking about your feelings. Like it was like, it's like you get smacked upside your fucking head. That's just the way it was. And my dad was not like that with me, but my dad was, he was limited when it came to his emotional, but he always loved the fact that I was doing music. He was so proud of me. So, I think for him, he knew that this isn't what I wanted to do. But I had 2 young kids. I was in a really messy relationship, and it was just my whole life changed from 39 to 40. It was a complete transition. And then when all that was going on, it was a very, very tough time, but it was a great time too, because there was like this whole rebirth that was happening where I was kind of discovering who I was again. I was playing music again. And then there was this radio, and then I was finally able to just go off and be who I think I was kind of meant to be, which was where I'm at now. So.
Was there a point where, whether unspoken or spoken, that you felt that he was supporting this new direction of your career?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My dad would always he would always tell everybody else how proud he was of me. Okay. And especially when he passed, we had like a celebration of life for him and everybody that came. And it was great to see because, like I was saying, he would talk to everybody. I mean, looking at that room, like it was like, why are these people all gathered together? It made no sense. I mean, it made no sense on paper why these people were all in the same room together, except him. And all of them would tell me the same thing, like your dad was so proud of you. Your dad was so proud of you. And he really was. I mean, I'm proud of my kids, with what they do. So I can imagine, and I'm sure his dad was proud of him to a certain degree, but it's all being able to converse. And again, going back to that thing, men have a real hard time talking.
Do you make sure that you voice that to your kids
God,
now?
Yes. I smother my kids with love and too much. They're like, that's enough.
Right.
But it's okay.
But that's what you want, right, Dad?
Well, you want to break that. I think every generation wants to break that cycle.
Yeah.
And I think I've really broken that cycle of not being able to talk.
I think so.
I think it's super commendable. And to see anyone kind of breaking that generational trauma. I expect that takes a lot of self-reflection. And you've mentioned a few times throughout our conversation about healing, about being in recovery.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that kind of lended itself to your outlook. If they kind of go
Definitely.
hand in hand.
Oh yeah. Like recovery for me. Listen, I put my sobriety number one. That's always, and everybody knows that. My wife knows that. My kids know that. Professionally, like that is the number one. It's got to be. It's the forefront of everything. If that's in check, the rest, and I wouldn't have any of the experiences I've had if I hadn't gotten sober. 100%.
Do you feel comfortable telling us what led you onto that path? What helped you make that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I just did a lot of drugs and I drank a lot.
Yeah, but not everyone says, I want to heal.
Yeah, I mean, really.
There's usually a tipping point, and everybody. It could be like an accident, somebody getting hurt.
Yeah, it was a bunch of that kind of stuff. I mean, people ask me like, what's your earliest memory of being an alcoholic? And my earliest memory of being an alcoholic was not when I took my first drink. It was when I was in the schoolyard at Willingdon in NDG, and I was standing at one end of the schoolyard, and I looked across, and I saw a bunch of kids, and I was sure they were talking about me. That was my earliest memory of being an alcoholic.
Paranoia.
So the ease and comfort that alcohol gave me, once I drank, I was like, oh man, I can be myself. I don't care what you think about me. It's easier to talk to girls. The whole thing was just like, wow. It worked. And the next time I got that ease and comfort was when I got sober and I started working my steps. That's when I was like, oh, now this makes sense.
Isn't that funny?
Very funny.
The irony of like where you are now,
Yeah.
being in that comfort zone where you have to be even more comfortable with yourself to put other people at ease. The tipping point.
The tipping point. That was my tipping point. That's my tipping point really was when it stopped being fun. The beginning was fun, 15, 16, you're drinking, it's fun, all this stuff. And then it just goes dark real fast.
Right.
And, it was just not alcohol. Then it was drugs. Then it was like, wow, cocaine makes me drink so much longer. And like, I can do cocaine. And now I'm like, I can drink. And it just, all of that. And then one of my friends, a really good friend of mine, was in a drinking and driving accident, was in a car with someone and was on the 20 going west and hit a family head on, killed the entire family and himself. And the guy who was in the passenger seat lived. And I remember when that happened, all of my friend group, we were devastated. His family didn't want us to have any of us near the funeral, nothing. And I remember a week later we were drinking and driving still. And I was like, none of us learned anything from this. And it was all of this stuff that just kind of compounded. And it was July 25th, 92. I just said, that's it. And it's been 31 years now. So,
Good for you.
Yeah, man. And, alcoholism, you take the alcohol out of it, which that's gone. It's the isms. And that's why I still, that's why I still do meetings. I still work with people. And I'm grateful. I mean, it's really, when you have so many people in life that are searching, they spend money on therapy, they spend money on life coaches, all these things to just get a better grasp on things. And then, you stumble into an AA meeting and you're like, holy shit, it's all here.
Right.
If I want it.
Right.
And grateful,
At this stage, no matter who you're interviewing, you've interviewed like some of the biggest stars in the world.
Yeah.
And, there has to be a time where you say to yourself, I've arrived.
But the same token, it's very important to be able to sit back and go, like every once in a while, my wife, Julie, my wife is my rock, my best friend. We work a lot together on a lot of projects, and every once in a while something incredible will happen, which has been the case, for the last, 15 years. There's been some incredible things that have happened, and I'll look at her and I'll go, before we move on to the next thing, because that's how I am. I just forward motion, like Slaves on Dope Days. It's all about forward motion. Let's take a minute and really say this was fucking great. And let's enjoy this for a minute. Like, let's go out to eat. Let's do something. Let's sit and talk about it. Like, let's celebrate this moment, because this moment's never going to be here again.
Sure.
And we got to acknowledge that this is happening, because with everything, I mean, you run a business, like, there's these little victories that happen.
Absolutely.
And you've got to, I was looking through, you talk to David Usher, David Usher is fucking so smart.
so
and such a good dude.
So smart.
You
And
know,
such a wonderful human. Yeah.
Cute, great guy. So, you know, you have these moments where you're like, I really want to savor that, you know? And I look back sometimes like the last week and a half, you know, I was in Ottawa. I was interviewing Giancarlo Esposito. And I came home and started the Trump gag. I got Donald Trump on the phone on a Wednesday.
Crazy.
I went to a Buffalo Bills game.
That's
and then I come back, and on the Tuesday, I'm hosting the Montreal Canadiens Media Day with all the new players. And what is this
And now
fucking life?
you're on Basebin TV.
Yeah, right. There you go.
There's nowhere else but down from here.
No, but honestly, man, I'm so grateful that people actually want to talk to me. I mean, because I love talking to people. So when I have someone on my podcast, and it's all about transference of energy.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's just
100%.
being a good person. So
Yeah.
But there are moments where I'm like, man, this is fucking crazy. Like I'm in the moment. Like podcast wise, yeah, I've talked to some huge people, but the ones that matter to me, like, you know, like the ones that come out, you know, like interviews, like, yeah, Peter Gabriel was huge and all that. U2 was huge, but you know, Jim Kerr from Simple Minds, when I met Jim Kerr, and I mean, I was a kid looking at Simple Minds album covers, fantasizing what it would be like to look like to have a haircut like Jim Kerr, like Breakfast Club, Don't You Forget About Me. All that was just so like like 15, 16-year-old sweet spot. Meeting him was like, I almost cried, you know. Peter Hook from New Order and Joy Division. Those were, and then, you know, Faith No More, like being able to talk to Billy Gould from Faith No More and Matt Wallace, who produced some of my favorite records, together. And it's talked to them for an hour and a half about Angel Dust, which is like, not the drug, the album.
Yeah.
It's like,
She's like, what the fuck? Man, we were like making meth. But it was so magical, you know? And that's like, there's a couple of interviews that I listen to all the time. And sometimes I'll be doing dishes and I'll just put that podcast on just because I want to hear it again.
Sure.
Because I'm like, I can't believe I did that.
Sure.
It's crazy.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with reliving those moments.
Yeah. And I don't do that often. Like when I'm done something, it's on. Like I don't listen to, you know, like
I get it.
you know, like it says on dope music. I don't like watching interviews. Like I'll do an interview and Julia will be like, okay, well, can you, because she produces the podcast, she'll be like, can you give me a couple of moments that you want to use for clips? And I'm like, oh, just fucking listen. I don't know. Like, I don't want to watch it again. Like just, it's not my job. I did the interview. I'm moving on now. My job is getting the next fucking 4 weeks of interviews.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel you. That's
Yeah. You know.
Sound familiar, Kayla?
yeah. I was saying to Albert, I'm like, this man stays booked and busy. I'm wondering, because I was like looking at all your stuff and there's like awesome thing after thing after thing after thing. How do you reset yourself? Is there anything that you do that's like just for you apart from this?
Yeah. So I started so I got fired from Shom. I don't know if that was going to come up, but I'm very open to talk about it because I have no ill will towards them at all, or Bell. I mean, it is what it is. But when that happened, I got a call from a guy I knew when I was a kid. This guy Steve, and he's like, "I think you should start working out." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I think you should start working out. I'm going to train you 3 times a week." I'm like, "Well, I'm not in a position right." He's like, "Don't worry about it. Let's just do this. You need this." So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10, from 10 to 11, I work out with this guy, Steve Frischman, who's great. And he kicks my ass for an hour.
I've been seeing you punch in the bag.
All that, you know, and it's like, and it's not, I just need to do that. And it's for me, it's my hour. And I get asked every fucking week, are you available from, I'm like, I am not available from 10 to 11:30.
That's Jason time.
That has to be. And I have to guard that because if I don't, but it's such a big interview. It doesn't matter. What's more important? Me being in a good headspace and I've said, I got offered a huge interview a week ago. Huge. They said 3 times, 10:30, 10:45, 11. Do you want this is the only time. I go, great. What day? Wednesday. Not available. You're turning down an interview with, I'm like, I can't. They're like, why? I'm like, well, that's the hour that can't you? And I know that I could reach out to Steve and he'd be like, yeah, let's move 9 or like, no, that's the hour.
Yeah.
You got to respect that.
Yeah.
So those are my 3 hours a week.
Yep.
That there's no phone. It's just me and that moment. And oh my God, that.
And the more people we talk to, it seems a lot of us who are in entertainment and music turn towards physical activity to just kind of find ourselves to present again within our own bodies.
Yeah. Well, it's It's getting away from things. Like I have a dog too, and walking my dog. My wife's very adamant about us walking after dinner. We eat early. Like we have little things that we do. Like we don't eat. We try not to eat past 6:30. Try not to eat too close to going to bed. Like, you know, all these little things that are just make it a little bit, just having a routine, you know, and walking my dog, like not having my phone when I go somewhere. If I go for dinner, I don't bring my phone. Like if we're going to a restaurant or going to a friend's house, my wife will have her phone if we need to take pictures, but I just try to be in the moment. And it's hard because I mean, I work on my phone. We're all on our phones, or there's anxiety that happens with that. And there's like, you're looking for the endorphins and like, I need that little hit of dopamine. And I don't know. There's certain things I think I need to do that are important. And I found some, and of course, like any recovery meetings and stuff, those are important, but things just for me. Those 3 hours are like my time.
Let's mosey on down to you still being a little bit involved in creating music. COVID came around. Yeti Ward started a relief fund for roadies. How did you get involved with now all of a sudden collaborating with your ex-partner in crime for Slaves on Dope, Kevin, and playing with Mastodon, and like how does that even start?
So Bill from Mastodon, Bill Kelleher, the guitar player from Mastodon, and I have been friends for probably 12 or 13 years. He's a really good friend of mine. And he was doing all these really cool covers during quarantine. And he did a Rush cover. And we had this love of Rush together. So he played me his Rush cover that he'd done. And I was like, this is amazing. And then he said the magic words, if you ever want to do one, let me know.
Right.
And that was it. I was off to the races. So I went to Kevin. I go, do you want to do one? He said, yeah. Which song should we do? Let's do We Care a Lot, Faith No More. So I went back to Bill. What do you think We Care a Lot by Faith No More? He goes, that's a pretty good idea. So Kev's like, we should ask if we can get the bass player from Anthrax. And I went to Bill. I go, do you think we could get Frank Bello? He goes, I know Frank. And that was it.
Done.
Called Frank.
Sure.
And then it was just dominoes. Like boom, 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 boom. So on that first one, we had everybody. And then we had this cover. It was so good. And we're like, well, what are we going to do? Like, what's the cause? Like, and that's when Bill's tour manager, a guy named Tim Moss, who manages Faith No More, I was put in touch with him, and I called him up, and I mean, he's mad. My favorite band in the world is Faith No More. And I was talking to their manager, and he's like, hey, yeah, I got this buddy of mine, Yeti, and he's, he used to be Taylor Hawkins' drum tech. He's out of work right now, but he started this thing called Roadie Relief, partnered with them. That was it. And it was because of Tim that we got Bill Gould to do that little thing at the end of the cover. And then next thing we know, we're doing a cover with the rhythm section from Faith No More, doing She Watched Channel Zero, Public Enemy. It was fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And Kevin produced everything.
Yeah.
Recorded, he was the guy that had to get all the recordings and make them sound seamless.
Right. The logistics of everything.
Oh,
He went through everything.
But he just
yeah.
ate it up. Like he loves that shit.
Yeah.
He would, bitch.
And he
about
did a
it.
great job because it sounded great.
Job. The sound record, just the recordings, the audio recordings sound
everything
great.
was like great.
And then my friend Ryan, who I do my podcast with, assembled all the videos, and it was like magic, man. And those 4 that we did were so much fun, and I got to create with some of my favorite musicians in the world. And what's been great is that now that everything's back to normal, I've been able to slowly meet all the people that have been a part of it, like Richard Patrick. I met Richard from Filter the other day. I met Louise Post. I've met all these people that were part of Kings of Quarantine. And that's my goal, is that every musician that was a part of one of these covers, I get to meet them at one point, which is kind of cool. So
now, just a little bit prior to that, you had some collaborations with some very, very well-known hip-hop, I should say, icons. So Daryl McDaniels, Run DMC, and then all of a sudden I see you like collaborating with Chuck D from Public Enemy.
Yeah.
How in the hell
did that happen? It's like my life, man. How the fuck did any of this shit happen? I still don't know sometimes.
People want to know.
Daryl, I met a guy named Mitch LaFawn. He was I think he still does stuff. He's like a guy that would interview a lot of people, and he put me in touch with Daryl. And it was like, you should talk to DMC. I think you like hip hop. So I was doing a show at CJD at the time, as well as the Show 'em Show. And I reached out to Daryl. I sent him an email and preface this by saying massive DMC fan, massive Run DMC fan. I mean, fuck, it's our generation. My first, that was like the first wave of hip hop for me. And so I reached out to him. I said, I'd really love to have you on my CJD talk show. And he was like, I'd love to come do your show. I was like, come do my show. And he's like, yeah, I'll fly in. I was like, what? So he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, we don't have a budget to fly you in. Like, we're a fucking AM radio station. He's like, no, I'll fly myself in. So he flew in. We ended up setting up a press day for him. So he did a bunch of interviews. He ended up coming to Comic-Con that year later. Right. We just formed this friendship, and he did a collab with us. So he did this song called Scriptwriter, and then we ended up doing a bunch of collabs with him. And
so he wrote his own bars on that song?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we did a lot of stuff with him. We did a song called Coming Like a Rhino, and we bonded on our love for Public Enemy. He loves Chuck D. He's his favorite MC. And I said, well, me too. Chuck D's my hero. I've got a Public Enemy tattoo. I've got Chuck tattooed on my leg. I love Public Enemy. And he's like, oh, I'll ask Chuck if he wants to be a part of it. And I was like, what? So yeah, look, when that happened, I'll never forget getting Chuck's part. And just getting this email from Carl Reidenhauer. And I was like, and it just said, gentlemen, here's my, and I remember listening to it. I was like, I think I got it 3 a.m. because
soloing his vocal.
I just listened. No, I listened on my headphones in bed. I got the email like 3 a.m. because I guess he sent it. He was in the West Coast, and I just remember listening to it and crying. I was like, oh my God, that's fucking Chuck D. Yeah. Like Chuck D's like, there's Chuck D, there's Henry Rollins. Like, those are the guys. They're like my North Stars when it comes to like musicians that also had their heads on straight.
Right.
Like they weren't just musicians. They were spokesmen on how you could live your life. There was a lot more to them than just music.
Sure.
Especially Chuck.
Yeah.
So, and then getting to meet him, spending some time with him on the Prophets of Rage show, shows, and going to some of those shows and having like going to catering with him. Like, I might never see Chuck again, but that doesn't matter. It's just, but I've shared a moment with him, and we've created something together. And that's what I love about Daryl. Like, I was at Ottawa Comic-Con a couple of weeks ago, and there's this really cool artist named Beto. And he's from Toronto. And what he does is he takes classic comic book covers and he flips them and makes them hip hop themed.
Oh, wow.
And they're incredible. And he'll draw Wu-Tang Clan as the X-Man, or like, it's just unbelievable what he does. And I saw that they had done a Run DMC one, and it was reminiscent of the first edition of the first Marvel Star Wars comic, that cover. And he did it like it was Run DMC. I was blown away, and I was like, man, this is incredible. I go, give me a minute. I'm going to call somebody. So I sent a picture to DMC, and DMC right away, Daryl was like, where is that? What is that? So I FaceTimed him, and I sat down next to the guy at his booth, and the guy was doing a sale. And he was like, yo, what's up, Jay, man? How you doing? Who did that? Where'd you find that? And Beto's like, is that who I think it is? And I'm like, yeah. I go, here you go. Hey, D, check it out. He's like, the guy's like,
my
and
God.
Daryl has a comic book publishing company.
Right.
And he's like, goes, you should do comics for me. And Beto's like, I'd love to. And then they talked. And then after I turned the camera back to Daryl, and he goes, CJ, we got him a gig. I'll talk to you later. Send me his info. And that's the kind of guy Daryl is.
Wow.
Daryl wants to collaborate. He's like a little kid.
Super
all
generous.
the time. Super generous. Yeah. And I learned so much from him. When I saw how he was being an icon, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Grammy winner, like guy's the top at what he does. And if he has time for a guy like me,
right,
I have time for anybody. You know what I mean? Like that, he just has zero ego. And it's just, it's about forward motion, about the work. And he was a part of the first cover that we did, the Kings of Quarantine cover too. He was
That's right. Yeah.
And then we did another one, and I sent it to him, and he was like, I'm not feeling this one. I was like, okay, that's fine. Like I get it. He goes, but keep it, you know, and that's okay.
But he's entitled to that.
He is.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how he got done performing on the Grammys with Aerosmith, and I was sitting with my daughter watching it, and I texted him. I was like, "You did a great job." Like literally, like they had just gotten off stage, they went to commercial.
Right.
And he texted me back, "Thanks." My daughter was like, "I can't believe that." I'm like, "That's
That he took the time
to text." And that's the kind of guy he is. He has zero ego.
But I think that, you know, it's like when you meet people like that and you bond,
Yeah.
that's a lifetime bond. It's sort of like friends that you haven't spoken in years, and
Yeah.
when you end up speaking,
Yeah.
it's like it was
Like
yesterday.
yesterday. That's
'Cause
how it should be.
That's how it should be.
But
'Cause
it isn't always like that.
No, it isn't always like that. But it's sort of like your sort of, I call it a little separation with Kevin at one point. You knew that at one point you guys were going to like talk again and
think
get
so,
together.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you know, because you guys were so close. You know what I mean? It's like that was a friendship that was just bound to like just bounce right back.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when you like, especially Kevin, like when you shared so much together, we have a language between us that other people don't understand, you know, and but at the same token, you know, you're growing in different directions sometimes, and it's the glue that holds you together. But those kind of relationships can be really challenging too, because sometimes you're like, man, I if we're not doing music together, you know, like we have very different interests, like, and there's a couple of things that we, you know, we really bond on still. And it was my wife that really helped me with that, understanding that relationship. Cause for, you know, sometimes you're like, what is that? And she says, you and Kevin aren't friends, you're brothers.
Yeah.
That's a different thing.
Oh, hell
Because you
yeah.
guys are like brothers.
Yeah.
And brothers fight.
Yeah.
Brothers have differences of opinion, but
Yeah.
they're always family. And will always like
100%.
Kevin need, you know, he still calls me and goes,
Yeah.
I need a lift to the airport tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like I'm up at 6, I drive him to the fucking airport. He knows that. But
I think Julie nailed it.
yeah,
I think she nailed it.
No, and it's so true. I mean, we really are like we're and yeah, like I wish we could spend more time sometimes together. And you know, if he's listening, he'd be like, "Well, fucking call me." And so I know how it is, but
He'll give you a call right after the podcast.
but you know but you know we always message each other funny memes, stuff that we can only send each other.
Sure.
But,
Yeah. Well, there are moments in our lives where, like you said, you have to take the time, pinch yourself, take it all in, and say, thank whoever, but I'm going to thank myself right now for putting me in this position, for doing what I love, enjoying what I do on a daily basis, and surrounding myself with people that I admire and that I adore. And you are one of those people, Jason, and that's why I wanted you on the show.
Well, you know what? You and I have been friends for a long time. It's funny because I have this picture of you in a Slaves on Dope hat from years ago. It's like one of my favorite pictures.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, like I've always loved what you do too, because you don't do anything half-assed. We were talking about when we were in your console room. It was like, this place is great, but you always know how to do things the right way. You know, like in terms like business wise, and like you always build things the right way. And it's admirable to see people do that. You know, it's like, it's a nice quality when people go in with the, you know, like, don't spare expenses. Don't cut corners. Try to do things the right way. Don't cheat yourself out of greatness, you know, but
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah, it's true. And you got a great co-host too. I mean, man.
Oh, we're basically best friends now.
Well, as soon as you walked in, I saw your Motley Crue shirt. I had my Exorcist shirt on. We were like, best.
She was talking about
Yeah,
The
so, like-
Exorcist
That
2
was it.
seconds before
Dude,
you walked in.
How do you think this new Exorcist movie is going to be? Are you
I don't
excited?
know. Listen,
I'm excited, but I know it could go really. I mean, it's Blumhouse, so it could be like fucking great. Or
it could be
or
fantastic,
it could be a shit show.
but it's like, I don't know. It's like any sort of like remakes or sequels, or I get very, very nervous, especially when you're a really big fan of the source content.
Yeah.
We'll see.
There's the 4K scan of like I'm getting a little deep here, but William Friedkin's right before he died, because he just died like a month ago. The director supervised the 4K scan of Exorcist, and supposedly went back and forth like a fuck ton of times before they settled on what went out. And it's being released in a week or something. But I've seen stills from it. I mean, it's never looked better. So I'm looking forward to people being able to see The Exorcist, the original one, on the big screen again, because that was a terrifying experience.
Oh, yeah.
And
I wasn't allowed to watch that till I
man,
was like
it's-
in my teens. I
I
think.
don't know, guys. I saw it like on like some sort of TV channel as a kid, and something's wrong with me because I went, "What's that?"
this is amazing. Yeah, no, it's great. It's still terrifying, but I have high hopes for the new one. I'm that guy. Like I don't tear things apart when I ask to critique something. I just go. I walk in. I'm like, I want to be the biggest fan of this. Let's go.
Right.
So
now I have high hopes for you, my friend. So where can people hear you? I believe that you can still see Jason on the Rockman Power Hour.
Rockman Power Hour, best place.
That's the best place.
Every
to like.
week, new episodes. You can follow me on social media at the Real Jason Rockman on.
So YouTube. Or you can stream also on Spotify, I believe.
On all the wherever your audio podcasts are.
Yeah.
We're there, and of course Comiccons. Still Montreal, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Quebec.
Are you going to MiniCon?
MiniCon, yeah. When we do that show here too. So yeah, we and all these other little fun things. And who knows? I mean, as you know, my time's been freed up. So like now it's just on to the next adventure. So we shall see.
We wish you well, my friend.
Thank you.
And I have no worries about you.
Oh, thanks.
Whatsoever.
Good. I'll tell that to my inner child.
Thank you, Jason, for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
We'll see you next time on
Basement TV.
Whoosh.